Welcome to this special Brave Ideas Deep Dive. I'm your host, Caleb Parker, and today we're diving into a topic that we've been exploring throughout Season 14, our GWA mini-series, a topic that's transforming the co-working industry and will continue to do so for the months and years ahead. The topic of data, but not just data, making data-driven decisions for more human workspaces. This season, we've heard from Sam Gamble and Giovanni Alavicini on key issues around making data-driven decisions in addressing investor concerns and differentiating organizational failures from industry challenges, as well as the need for new risk-adjusted valuation methods using operational data. We are going to hear from Ben Wright, who discusses the emerging trends in dynamic pricing for flexible workspaces and how technologies can bring transparency to deal structuring, helping operators secure financing and improve collaboration with landlords. But what about this operational data? From improving operational efficiency to creating personalized experiences, data is the hidden superpower behind some of the best co-working spaces. But beyond the buzzwords, how do we make data work for people and not the other way around? Today, our guest is someone who has a ton of experience in our industry, Manuel Conti, my friend, has spent years working in this industry, leading technology innovation for the big names out there, solving the big challenges our industry faces every day. From high-volume transactions to very niche spaces with complex business rules, Manuel has seen it all. Trust me, he's told me about it. Welcome to the show, Manuel.
Hey, thanks for having me, Caleb.
Of course. How are you liking this season so far?
Yeah, actually it's very good, very good. I love you and Sam walking into New York City and, of course, when you have names like Giovanni, people listen. So fantastic. Thanks.
Thank you. We had a good time in Times Square looking for that pizza. I've had some good pizza with you before as well. But anyways, thanks for agreeing to do this deep dive with me. It's such an important topic. So let's dive in. You ready?
Absolutely. Let's crack on.
All right. So I want to start with the big picture first. Data in co-working spaces is clearly a hot topic. We've been talking about that. What role does it actually play in the day-to-day operations, though?
Before we start, let's state, first important things. Data is more than just numbers. Of course, we need data to track the revenue. We need the data to track the margin, and we know how this important is for operators today. Margin are very thin. But I think data is mainly about taking informed decision and proactively prepare for the future. So it's really try to be ready for what is going to happen. And this goes, from real-time occupancy data, and then, where you can actually check what is occupied or unoccupied, and also try to understand how members behave. Okay, so I think that's really the very important part. And I'm working with an operator that has a few buildings, and he had a aha moment because his occupancy was okay. But when we went deep diving into the data, we actually saw that the office occupancy was okay, but the workstation occupancy was actually very low. So that made them realize that they were renting spaces not sized correctly. So I think that it's something that is very important. This is what can trigger the moment for operators to start defining new products like hybrid membership, try to really model the products and the space based on how their members behave. For example, another aspect is, I think last week I was speaking to an operator in the Philippines who was telling me that they mainly focus on co-working, and they had run a survey and they discovered that actually members were finding their spaces too noisy. So based on their feedback and on their data that they gather, they then implemented pod to have less noise on the co-working area. And actually this came up with satisfaction. So I think it's important that we understand how those data can really change the bottom line. And for example, I was mentioning the hybrid membership and the evolution of products. This can have a real true impact on the revenue. And industry benchmark data shows that 25% increase of revenue can happen when we try to adapt the products to the behavior of the users.
Well, I want to go back to that first example, just on that last point there. When you talk about the occupancy looked okay, it looked decent, but actually the utilization of the actual spaces wasn't being addressed by the customer. And so by looking at the data and how they're utilizing the space, the workstation data and the occupancy data, you can match it up and put that customer on a better product for them, which would lead to less churn. I think that's what you're saying.
Correct. And then you may then come to a conclusion that you need to um, renovate that space and maybe use it as a different product, or maybe you can use it at multiple products, right? We always think about, private offices and meeting rooms, but what about if a private office can be also a meeting room, and then you can just adapt based on the behavior of your members. So yes, absolutely. It's all about preparing for the future and being proactive on what happens with your members.
Reminds me of one of my previous episodes with KK Patisserie from Coho. She was talking about one of her clients. They had a client that had 20 workstation office, but only 5 people were coming in on a regular basis. And so by looking at that data, they were able to have a conversation with that customer, because that signaled, if you only have 5 people coming in on a 20 workstation office, it signaled to them that they're probably going to leave at some point. So to your point, you get them on the right product, you're looking after that customer, but you're also looking after your long-term income.
Exactly correct. So this is where data can work for the operator and for the business.
Very, very good. Well, I imagine data isn't just about fixing problems, but also about building trust, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I think we can look at the trust on 2 angles. So first of all, now with everything is happening in the industry, with landlords coming, more and more, being more and more present in the industry. So first of all, is building trust with landlords. So when an operator will sign a management agreement with a landlord, I think it's important that the landlord has the trust and the confidence that that operator has the right data in place and the right framework to take the right decision. So this will make sure that the landlord has more confidence on signing that management agreement. But also the same trust needs to be built with the members. So it's about transparency. It's about making sure that the best service is delivered. So I think it's really about how can we use those data to create a better experience, the better service for the entire industry, end to end.
This has come up a lot this season, talking with Gio and Sam, of course, but also, this episode coming up with Ben, he talks about looking at the data to help with these landlord relationships. And often what I hear is from the landlords is that, well, we don't know how this business is going to do because you can't provide me with 3 or 4 or 5 years of historical data broken down by product, etc. And so how do you see that happening here from your perspective?
So I think there is 2 sides again on this question. So one is the historical data. Yes, definitely. And I think it's important to show the bottom line of the historical data, how the business did, what was the margin, and etc. Then the results about showing how those data help taking the right decision to maybe make a turn on the business or respond to a particular event. And I think that is one side of things. The other side is, okay, how those data are really be able to provide the landlord with transparency while the business is going. So once the landlord has signed the management agreement, what is the type of communication that we can have with the landlords? What type of system we can provide to the landlords to have real-time data also on their side? I think, most of the conversation I have every day with operators, often they say, listen, I'm preparing a deck for the landlord. I'm preparing a report for the landlord. Okay, what about the landlord can also have those real-time data? Because at the end of the day, it's all about transparency. Okay, so I think that's the 2 sides. So one, making sure that there is trust on how decisions are taken in a conscious way. And the other side is that, okay, what transparency can you give me for the next 5 years of our agreement, and to make sure that my objectives are achieved?
So later in the season, I sat down with Kylie Van Buren from Industria. She's VP of real estate for them in New York. And she talks about the reporting that they have to do for their landlords. And I spoke to Andrew Dunn, who's VP for Brookfield, who deals with their 1.6 million of flex exposure. And he talks about the reporting that he requires from operators. So this is a hot topic that we're talking about here. Ben Wright, we'll hear them talk about integration of technologies. And I know you're really big about standardization and integration. And of course, I have to give a shout out to my friend Sam Gamble from that first episode in Times Square, because he's wanting to help with Return Suite provide this modeling data. How do you see the technologies like PONT integrating and providing that data through the different platforms for operators?
So PONT comes out of the box with the access for landlord. So our operators, our customers, they register the landlord. Landlord has access to the platform, and then landlord, of course, will be able to see only their buildings, and they will get a set of reports that are specific to them. And in that way, they can access anytime. There is no anymore, the last month rush to provide the reports to the landlord, but it's real-time integration. Then, of course, based on the operators, you can enrich those data with other type of information system and data set, of course. But I think what we thought that is brings real value for both parties is that I said, okay, you're going to get access to those data in real time. You will see exactly what's going on, and you will be able to be informed properly. So again, transparency and trust.
Transparency, trust, and that real-time data delivers both. Okay, well, switching gears just a little bit, this has been good so far. There's been a lot of talk about automation, of course, but AI agents, AI in general, which maybe that's something we want to dive into a little bit deeper here. But what's your take on this whole topic around artificial intelligence as it pertains to co-working data?
Okay, you use the swear word AI. Okay, today, who are you if you are not using the AI swear words? More seriously, I think it is a game changer. There is no need for me to say it. It's evident to anyone. I'm actually very much interested on how AI can augment the data we have in the identifying patterns that maybe we could not see immediately, and then also augment the humans to then take the right decisions. I think something super important is, we have seen in the last decades, the rise of IoT devices, from locks and sensors and desk sensor, chair sensor, temperature sensor in the room. So I think that has been fantastic. Now, those things actually becomes data on steroid, because you can then really try to adjust and optimize the data with the help of AI. So I think that's very important. The other side, which I really believe is going to be also very interesting, is the sustainability aspect. And sustainability, and making sure that we optimize energy for of course the money side of things, but also for the planet, is a fact. So how AI can really help take those right decisions is going to be super important. So yes, it's fantastic. I don't think that anyone has the silver bullet. We haven't cracked the code yet, a lot of things, and I am probably sitting on the excited ones, but also very cautious on not becoming a fanboy of that technology or that other technology.
You mentioned IoT, and I think that's something used to be a buzzword, and it kind of went away for a bit. But now with AI becoming or will become ubiquitous, I think IoT comes back onto the scene big time because of exactly what you said. And maybe can we go a little bit more deeper and go into some of the specifics? Because I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on how co-working spaces can use this data to create personalized user experience, because that's what IoT is all about, right?
So definitely. So I think IoT is, despite how we call it IoT, we call it devices, we call it wearables. Okay.
IoT, by the way, Internet of Things.
Yes. And we all have, we have our watches, we have our phones that track, how many steps. So this goes, from very, very basic things to very advanced things, also in the area of health, which is not my expertise. So I'm not gonna go there for sure. So I think if we look at service office and co-working operators, my view is that it's about behavior understanding, and this goes beyond the four walls of the building, but it goes actually to the area. So I'm a big fan of the 15-minute cities concept that was introduced a few years ago, and how the behavior of our members within the building and in the area can actually be shaped to make sure that it has a real impact for the society as well. So today, with the data that we have available, we can understand when our members maybe take calls, or when our members maybe take an in-person meeting. We can understand how much time they spend online and how much time they spend maybe in the flow thinking about things, how much time they're spending on different type of spaces. Could be a boardroom, could be a meeting rooms, could be an event room, and so on. So it's really trying to understand the members' behavior. And of course, all of those data happens at scale. So for example, I'm a big fan of the win initiative that has been launched by Elliot from Work.life, so Workspace Intelligent Network, where operators come together and start to sharing in an anonymized way the data to really understand better how the industry behaves and works. And I think that is really, really key and is going to be a competitive advantage to provide a better member experience.
Yeah, and I think just talking about user behaviors and preferences, having that data and then having the ability for artificial intelligence, AI, to understand the data to then deliver a specific experience for that user is interesting to me. And when go back to the Internet of Things, IoT, because if the platform knows that Caleb's coming in, Caleb likes the temperature to be at 20 degrees because he gets cold easily. He likes a certain logo on the screen when he comes in, and he wants a black Americano. Those are just some examples of how we can use the data so we can deliver the experience on site and make Caleb happy.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, even if we take this, maybe one step down on a more simple things, if you think about, real-time booking mechanism, very simple. Now we can augment those information. And if Caleb Parker walks into a space, he can see actually, maybe he knows that morning has to work more quietly, or, he has a specific need. He can actually take decision on the moment because that space is providing real-time data. And this goes from, sounds and noise. That could be from occupancy. It can really go down up to what you were saying, to the coffee decision, which is probably, maybe the far end. But yes, it's really trying to understand usage pattern and things. But there is also one other aspect. So again, let's try to think about how this can serve operators. Let's think about predictive analytics. So AI can actually make sure that we can understand how offices were, request, how the demand was raising, and how that pattern can be repeated. In that way, actually, we can prepare offer for, early bird adoption for private offices, or, different type of products, and make sure that, we try to get more business get in. I think something that I really like, it's about, understanding the up and off peak of usage of the space to make sure that maybe you can adjust your price based on, the occupancy level, and you can actually propose that space to the right individual, right? It's always about matching.
For sure. So it's got sort of three key benefits here. One, for the operator, making sure that they're forecasting for financial reasons, for staffing, and then for number two, delivering the customer the experience they want when they want it. And then number three, the landlord transparency, of course, around that. A lot of this stuff is collecting data on customers to deliver a great experience, but I imagine there's going to be some challenges too, like maybe privacy concerns. How does an operator balance giving the member trust we talked about earlier?
Privacy and security are big issues. And being a techie guy, I'm pretty sensitive on this. And I think it's important that we understand, the magnitude of this. And this is not about, when I'm saying privacy and security, I'm not thinking about, science fiction movies or things like that. And even ransom or asking for money to get the data back. These are things that happen, but probably are more for the headlines. I'm just even talking about reputational impact. Okay, so I think that's important, because if a customer knows that that operator got a data breach and then the data were not secure, that customer will not probably stay there again. So it's the reputational side, I think, that is important. So we need to make sure that, first of all, we respect what are the laws and GDPR, and without boring our audience, I think it's important, it's a given, and I'm sure that everybody applies that and make that in practice. But it's I think it's important to make sure that, first of all, we take that in consideration on day one. Security and privacy is never good when you try to apply it on the go. So you should start at the beginning. I think the second aspect is making sure that only the required data are needed. Not everything is needed. So something that I often repeat about, when we say data-driven decision, of course, it's important. We want to take the right decision for the members and for the business. through the usage of data. But it's not that because we want to do that, we need to save and store all the informations, okay? And I know that some operators happen in good faith and goodwill all the time. But for example, I was on a in a building some time ago, and actually I saw that there was a passport scan on the desk of over there, right? So and that was because probably the person wanted to save the passport of the customers, maybe for a virtual office products, whatever the reason is, and I'm sure it's valid. I think that those things are important. So I think, again, try to make sure that we save the right data. And of course, it's important that, for me, operators work with expert on things. And today, technology can help. For example, in PONT, we have launched a feature using partnering with a company that is called Yachty, where we do biometrics validation and passport validation, ensuring that Kelly Parker, when he says that he's Kelly Parker, he really is Kelly Parker. And the good side of things is that we do not store the passport. We do not save the biometrics information. We just validate that with a company that is certified by the government and has a number of certification, and then ensure that the security is contained. So I think that is important. It's a very gray area. It's important that we take that into consideration on day one.
Well, KYC is crucial. It's crucial for your relationship with your landlord who's coming in their building. And I think your partnership with Yalty is interesting. It reminds me of like Clear, the global entry in the US, where you get to kind of go through the line faster because they already know who you are. And right. My friend Leo Dess, who was access control executive brief several seasons ago, he said, access control used to be about keeping bad people out, but now it's about getting the right people in. And I think this is just a testament to that.
Yeah, I could agree more. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I understand that there is an ethical dilemma, right, over there, because what do you say, what you don't say? And it's a fine line. I personally, I don't like in general, give silver bullet or asserting the truth, because it's very difficult. My advice for operators is start with why. Okay, why do I need this information? And if there is no a solid why, then it's not needed. And I think it's a very simple rules, but I think it's an important rules to follow, in particular when we're talking about data storage and security and privacy. And it's a very important issue for people. And again, I think the downside and the risk is the reputational damage that can happen if something in terms of data, something bad happens.
For sure. We talked about transparency and trust, both with landlords and customers. Talked about leveraging data to deliver a good customer experience, to forecast. We've talked about security, privacy, or privacy, as my UK friends say. How do you see going forward? How are co-working spaces going to evolve to utilize data better?
Yes. So again, I just said that I don't like to make predictions, so I'm not going to try to attempt, making one. I believe, even before the data, what is pretty clear, of what happened in the last 18, 24 months is that our interaction as human beings with technology will change. So I think that for most of our listeners, it feels now natural to speak to ChatGPT or Perplexity or Claude and just ask things as we ask to a human being. It just feels natural. When previously we had to learn maybe 7 or 8 years ago the syntax of Google with the plus and the commas and all of these kind of things to try to get the right information. So AI is going to play a major role there, and in several angles that can go from presenting from a marketing perspective, from an operational perspective. I mentioned about the prediction and identifying the patterns and the usage and these type of things. I also believe that more technology will come in. Blockchain is something that I personally see a lot of values in. And when I'm saying blockchain, I'm not referring to the crypto side, which it's a different topic. It's based on that technology, but the blockchain is about really, establishing trust on, how we can make sure that the transaction and the signature of a service agreement happens in the right way. And of course, then we can also go on to the payment side and secure payment side and transactions. But I think blockchain is going to be important. And again, I think that sustainability with the support of all those technology, will be also important. And let's really try to imagine how we can go to the level of optimizing in real time energy consumption and on a building to make sure that one, we save money, and then two, we don't waste energy. So I think while all of those things do not look like the major revolution, apart from the AI side that we don't know what it's going to deliver fully, I think that all of those things, we now have the toolbox to make sure that we can take better decision and we can actually think with the customer and moreover, not just the customer, we said also the landlord. So we can think about all the stakeholders in mind. So all those decisions will be supported by the right technology with the right data to serve all the stakeholders in the business, the customers, the landlords, as the business as well, because at the end of the day, growth is important.
Can we give the audience a visual to think about in summarizing what you've just said, and like a practical example here of like, this is the customer, this is the landlord, this is the operator. Here's how AI and blockchain is going to make all of their lives better.
Yeah, yes. Okay. So basically, if you ask me for the magic, but if I'm thinking about members and customers, I'm thinking, first of all, how those people will interact with the technology. So if they need something, there is no anymore, complex form and, email to be sent, but maybe there is just, the possibility of saying what they want.
So they're just going to pick up their phone and say, I need a meeting room at 5:00 tomorrow.
Yeah. This is one example. And, I think that is going to be for the members, and also be able to, now operators will be able to understand better their needs and their uniqueness in the big scheme of things. Today, maybe customers can feel, especially for large operators, that they're just in maybe one Excel row somewhere. But now with all those information, we can actually get this type of relationship and customization. So the second aspect you mentioned is about landlord. So I think landlord, I already mentioned, to me, it's all about making sure that there is the right trust and take the right decision for both parties. Always a win-win mechanism. But when we have the technology that can support how a business is going, how the occupancy is going to evolve, how the churn is turning, how we react, for example, for some churn or some renewals that is not happening, these type of things, then this will automatically end with more business growing, because trust, building the trust, make sure that then landlords can maybe add another building and then another building and so on. So from a business perspective, my big mantra is that how we can use technology and data to make sure that our general manager or community manager can spend more time with the customers, right? It's always about augmenting things and making things better. It's just not about replacement. I'm personally, and future will tell us, I'm not convinced that AI will replace all the jobs and things like that. No, I think how can we use this to make sure that I can spend more time with the customer? And this can go from a very trivial things that could sound silly, like the system will remind me that tomorrow is Caleb's birthday, and then when Caleb works in the business, I can actually say, listen, hey Caleb, happy birthday. And as silly as this can sound, it's actually going to have an impact on Caleb's day. So again, when we say data-driven, for more human workspaces, how can we use those data as information to make sure that we can spend more time with our customer, we can have better relationship, and we are not wasting times on things that a machine can do in our behalf.
So Caleb picks up his phone. The phone says happy birthday to him. What can I do for you? And Caleb says, I need to book a meeting room tomorrow at 5 p.m. It does it. When I arrive, the operator has my coffee waiting on me. The temperature in the room is the right temperature. And then when that operator is telling their landlord, hey, by the way, Caleb just booked 40 hours of meeting room time last month, trending for the last 3 months. We're now going to suggest he upgrades to an office, and now Caleb's going to get an office, and we're going to make more money.
Yes, so, you picture there the happy path. which love it. And I don't think that our listeners are naive, and we're not picturing rainbow and unicorns and teddy bears here. But what we're saying is those things are possible today with the right technology in place. So it's a matter of where we put the attention, right? And I think that, there are operators that are doing it. I'm working with fantastic operators that they have that in mind. And it's brilliant. But then how can we make this available for everyone? I think that's the real question.
That's my segue, I think, to my final question for you, Manuel. Like, okay, you've got a lot of people out there would love to embrace this and deliver this, the teddy bears, as you say. But from a practical perspective, those who are leaning into this and want to embrace it, what advice would you offer them?
So, it might sound going against what I just said, but actually it's not. I would say start small and focus on what has an immediate impact for the business and for the members, right? And these then can grow as we go. So I think making sure that you can evolve and the solution that are put in place can grow with you. I think starting small is, for me, the best way. So what is going to move the needle today? That is where the focus should go. And of course, I'm happy to, speak to anyone who would like to know more.
So if I'm a small operator and I've been operating on a manual basis, I'm just now taking on an operating system. What does starting small for me mean? What does that mean to me?
Yes. And this is something that it's, very close to my heart, because what we're doing with PONT, we're really talking and working with, small, medium operators that want to grow, and which I believe today are a little bit forgotten. And this is the type of service that we want to deliver to them. So the first thing is ask probably for help. Try to get a clear picture with the data they have, and this can be on an Excel file or Google Sheet, or it's fine. So start with an audit, and this is something that, for example, we do. I think it is important to have, so to answer specifically your question, starting small, is to have a clear level of detail of how your product are used and what is the type of behavior that we can identify around those products. So as I mentioned at the beginning, the operator that had the haha moment, the occupancy was not fantastic, but was okay. Is when we deep dive on the data that the problem arised. And, it's not that operator was doing a bad job. It's just that, it was a new acquisition on an existing business. There was no clarity, and was only our occupancy is X. Actually, no, it's not. Let's see how we can do better on this. So really, yeah.
So if I play that forward a little bit, if I'm a operator that's on a manual system, maybe the starting small is moving to a digital platform, and then that digital platform enables me to look at the data that I have, because I can't look at it if it's manual. And then if I put it into a system that can recognize and understand the data and feed it back to me, that's sort of like the first step.
Yes. At least this is what, in my experience, really helps moving the needle. We go back to the, what moves the needle today. And it's something that I recommend to whoever I speak to. This is, okay, let's audit what you have today, and then we bring you on the system, because this is going to be much easier to understand how certain things are done. And listen, something that I've learned over the last 18 months is that operators are juggling 7 million things at the same time. You have the margin, you have the revenue growth, you have, the staff to keep going, you have the customer. So everyone is doing their best. And the objective is, let's remove some burden from you, and let's have the tech helping you giving this information. And what with those data, they can already understand better things, and then they will apply the magic. It's not the system that applies the magic, because when they know the information, they can say, oh, okay, fine, I can actually restructure this space or this other space, or I can invent a new product. And then I'm inventing a new product that is going to serve more customers. And now suddenly I'm actually having a real impact on the industry.
Thanks, Manuel. I think that's actionable advice. And now I want to turn to and pick on my audience who are running a larger portfolios. So where do they start small? How do they start embracing this technology that's out there and that's coming?
It's important on, how we try to speak to everyone in the audiences. And I can imagine how certain operators, listen, I did that 3 years ago. I'm good. Are you? So to me, for bigger operators is more about differentiate with competitors and about how can these evolve and grow in the future. So it's about prediction and making sure that you can anticipate with enough security or there isn't enough the possible investment that are made to make sure that we go to the next building or to the next country or to the next region. So I think it's where the AI comes at play and the maybe the blockchain security aspect of things come at play, addressing maybe a more enterprise audience. So we know how a lot of organizations, they didn't renew their long-term lease because they want to go hybrid for their employees, and regardless of the RTO drama and saga that we see on social media, I think it's important that we consider that people now work in an hybrid mode. So for the bigger operators is that, okay, how can you leverage all the amount of data that you historically have with the thousands of customers that you have to make the right prediction, to understand where to open your next building? And second, what type of service you can provide, leverage technology to maybe bigger customers. And I think that is going to be key because they're going to be more and more large organizations that they will want to have those type of information. And of course, I'm going to go again because to me, it's a key differentiator factor is that, okay, how can we work better with landlords to make sure that we can really scale the business?
I mean, it's crucial. It is, can't overstate that enough, because if we're going to scale, flex, and meet customer demand, we've got to have transparent, strong relationships with landlords and equity partners. And well, this has been fantastic. This is a topic we can keep going on and on, I'm sure, and go deeper on even further, which we will. But stay tuned for the rest of the season. And I hope you enjoy these next few episodes, especially the one coming up with Ben.
Okay. Thank you, Caleb. Thank you, everybody. Speak soon.
Thanks, Manuel. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, take care of yourself. If you've enjoyed this episode, you'll enjoy our Brave Ideas newsletter. Subscribe today by tapping on the link in the show notes. And don't forget, I'm always on the lookout for buildings to acquire and reposition with brand-led hospitality. If you know a building I should look at or an owner looking to sell or partner with, drop me a DM or contact us at bravecorp.co. Until next time, take care of yourself.